Did you ever had the feeling that you want to pull out your hair because of core data? Well, I did, till I made this tutorial series on core data, and this is episode number 2 of the series, and we are going to dive deep into core data attributes. So hit that subscribe button, open up Xcode, and let's dive in. So let's jump right into core data and some awesome attributes that you will learn today. We are going to build out a task manager so we can add tasks and edit them and complete them. So yeah, that will be really awesome. And just so you know, core data isn't that hard. We are going to tackle this in this series. This is the second part of the series, and make sure to check out the link in the description where you can find the link to the whole playlist and of course to the resources, because we are not going to build out the UI from scratch. It doesn't really make sense. It will be a long video anyway, so make sure to check out those down. And while you are at it, make sure to smash that like button so we can help other developers like you with the YouTube algorithm so they can find this video. While we are at it, let me just remind you that I do have at rebeloper.com/mentoring something called Dev Factory that is mentoring. We can chat on Zoom on your problems, and by the way, if you have any issues with core data, go ahead and check that out. Apply now, and let's just dive right into it by starting a brand new Xcode project. So let's just start off, create a new Xcode project. And I will name this appropriately. In the previous video, we have named this Core Data Fun 1, and today we are going to call this Core Data Fun 2, because yes, core data can be fun, and I will make it fun for you to use. So Core Data Fun 2. Now, we also, in the previous video, used core data, so we are going to do this right now. So we are not going to use core data in the next episode, so make sure to absolutely smash that like button so you get notified when that comes out. So now we use core data. We are going to talk about that in the next episode, how to not use core data, like the template one. So let me just save this here with a Git repository created, so you can take a look at it in detail once it is finished. So the link will be also in the description with the resources. So as usual, let's just do some house cleaning really quick. Let's get rid of the main interface there. If you followed along my tutorials, you already know the drill. We are just going to do this really quick. I'm not even going to go into why I'm doing it and how I'm doing it. I'm just simply deleting the daemon storyboard to do everything in code. So let's go here, window scene. There we go. And what we want to do here is just initialize the view controller, and that is pretty straightforward to do. Let me just scroll a little bit up so you can see. So a window equals UI window. Let's just see window. There we go. We are going to use the window scene. Window scene. There we go. Let's just make this key and visible. So window, make key and visible. And finally, we are going to use UI navigation. So let's just use UI navigation controller here. So window root view controller equals UI navigation controller for the root view controller. And while we're at it, let me just create our controller here. So let controller equals our view controller. There we go. And let's just add that in there. So let's just select our simulator and basically just build and run and see if everything works okay. We should have a simple navigation bar at the top. Build has succeeded. That's always a good thing to see. And let's just wait for this to load. There we go. Really nice. Okay, so let's take a look at the code. if you don't really know what's going on in the app delegate with this persistent container and save context, make sure to check out the first video in the series. Now, as I promised you, we are going to do a little bit more than in the previous video in this GUI. So we are going to create a task. So before we do that, let's just import all the files from our resources. So there we go. You should have all of these, and we have an image of the model which I will use just for guidelines. So we cover all the types of attributes for the entity. Attributes entity. Go ahead and check out the first video. Okay, so let's just drag and drop. First of all, let's delete the view controller because we are going to remove that and replace it with a new view controller. So let's just go ahead and select all of these except the model. So drag and dropping it right over and there. So make sure copy items if needed is checked, and the core data font 2 is checked. Now, if you take a look at these files, you will see that I'm using something called Spark UI. That's a library that I created for building out UIs really fast. So go ahead and check that out. If you don't want to, then just create these table views or collection views on your own. The gist of it is the same. You will learn core data. So for now, let us just import inside a Swift package Spark UI. So Spark UI. There we go. Hit return there. So we can see, let's select that one. Let's click on next there. And let's just use the branch version to be exactly 0.11.11 because most probably I will add some stuff to this repository and maybe it will break some things. So this is the working copy. Make sure it's 0.11.11. Now this will take a while to load because it's fetching all of the dependencies, and it depends on your internet connection. So we will see you in a while. Hey, welcome back, and with the power of editing, this should have taken you no more than 3 seconds, while it took me a little bit more than 5 minutes. Okay, so let's click on finish here, and we should be able to see all of our dependencies. Really nice. So let's hit Command B to see if everything builds, and if we have any issues, then we should fix it right now. And after that, we are going to move on to the Xcode template generated core data fund. Now again, we are going to build all of this out, like creating a data model, creating a core data stack in the next episode. So go ahead and hit that notification bell and smash that like button to get notified of that new episode when it's coming up on this epic core data tutorial. Now everything built successfully, so we can move on with the tutorial. So let's check out our core data fund. And let me just open up this model. Well, it's a PNG file, so this is just a reference. So what we are going to be talking about. So let's see here. First of all, let's just go one by one. It doesn't really matter. I will explain everything. So color, and it is a transformable, and we are going deep by the way. Let's just create our entity, because as you can see, we have a task here. Now, entities is kind of models. Go ahead and check out the first video in the series. Okay, so we are going to create a task here. So task, there we go. Make sure that it's just task, no spaces there. And that is it. We have now available attributes. So the first attribute should be a color. So I'm using Command Tab here to go between these windows. So the first one is color. So we should have color. And as you can see, there are no UI colors here. And that is why we are going to use a transformable. Okay, and how does the core data or our code know that this should be a UI color? Well, we are going to set its custom class here under the attributes to UI color. So that is how easy it is. As you can see, it's just set to UI color and we have an attribute. It's transformable. And it's transformable in a way that's mind-blowing. Yeah, really, really awesome. Otherwise, how would you do that? Maybe you would just add int values for RGB, like red, green, and blue, and maybe for alpha values, but that is so tedious. Now with transformable, you can do that really, really quickly and easily. Of course, we will see the code, how we just manage all of this. Okay, next one is completed. Yeah, because a task could be completed. So completed, there we go, and that is a Boolean value. Of course, Boolean value. Is it true or false? And that is all you have to do here. So let's move on. I tried to move this at a quick pace because there's a lot of code involved. So created at. So yeah, maybe we want to have created at because we want to have a sort, like ordering, not sort, ordering according to the creation date. And yeah, that is a simple date. So after created at, let's take a look at difficulty. Yeah, because we want to add a difficulty from 1 to 5. And that difficulty will, it's a good thing to have. We are just going to print it, like show that out in a label. So integers 16, 32, and 64. Well, I prefer integer 64 because, yeah, we are on a 64-bit processor, so it doesn't really matter in memory. So difficulty integer 64. ID, yeah, every object should have an ID. Let's have an ID here, and that will be a UUID. Now, this is, if you know UUID, that is a long random generated string. From the UUID string, of course, because that's a UUID. It's not a string, it's a UUID. Image data. Yeah, that is really interesting because, yeah, we want to save image data, but there we go, data. So we cannot save UI images. We can only save binary data. So we want to save image data, and we are going to convert UI image into PNG data and data into UI image. So one thing that you should add here for the binary data is allows external storage, and core data will take care of it. So yeah, you don't have to load all of this into memory all over and over again. So allows external storage, that is really useful to check here. Now this attribute is not available on all types. I believe it's only for binary data, but yeah, make sure to check that also. So image data, and finally title. You already saw title in the previous episode. So title, challenging for me to type today. And if we just take a look at all the other, it's double, decimal, undefined, float. Yeah, URI, it's just URLs if you want to. But in most cases, you store URLs as a string and then convert it to an actual URL in code. So I'm not going to cover that, but you can just store URLs as a URI type also. Okay, or just a path to a folder. That's also a URI. Okay, so now that we have this, let's talk a little bit about code gen, because if you just go to task, you will see under class, you have the name, of course, task, and here's something code gen. And let's just take a look at the files. So we don't see any classes. And if you recall in my previous video, I told you that if you just, by the way, it's selected by default. If you select class definition, that will generate classes for you, like the actual code and the classes for you for these entities and for all the entities. Now, that is kind of hidden. You cannot tinker with it, but in some cases you do want to tinker with it. And this is the place when we are going to, well, not tinker with it, we are just going to create it. But let me just show you an error. So first of all, let's just build and run this. And build has failed. Let's see why it has failed. Use of undeclared type UI color. Okay. And this is why it should be. As you can see, there is a UI color, but in the generated task.plus core data properties, we didn't import UI kit. Well, by the way, core data doesn't know this. So we want to generate a new file. But anyway, just because we have build and run, core data generated these files already. As you can see, it's task.core-data-properties, and you will see there are two files, one for a class and one for this extension. Actually, we are in the extension. So anyway, let's just move forward, and now we have this inside our Xcode project, just so you know. But we want to have it as a manual or a none. So now that we selected this and hit Command B, nothing will really happen. Of course, we have that error because we do have, but we now have to go under Editor and create NS managed object subclass. So let's click on that and select our core data model and select task. If you have more entities, then select all of them or whatever you want to create these files for. And let's click on next there. This is perfectly fine. So let's create them. So now you can see that these two files, a class and the properties file, basically the properties and extension on that class, has been created. So what I usually do is grab and drag and drop them under my core data model or inside a file, folder system, whatever, so they can be close to each other. Now let's just take a look at these two files. First of all, we have a class. That is the model for our task. And as you can see, it's public class. It is an NS managed object. Take a look at the first video if you don't know what I'm talking about. And then we have an extension on that class. And as you can see, it says UI color. Okay, so what you want to do is just hit Command B, and we will have an issue here. As you can see, it says that build has failed, use of undeclared, and so on. So what we want to do here is import UI kit. Okay, let's hit Command B again. And now build has succeeded. How awesome is that? But remember that auto-generated file is still there, so we will have trouble with that later on. What you could do, and I will just fix it already, if you encounter that you have multiple files in the derived data, make sure this is the keyword in that error warning, derived data. There are multiple files in derived data. Make sure that you just go under product and clean build folder, so that will clean that also. And while you are working with core data, make sure that you either delete the app from the simulator, or to be 100% sure, go under edit device, on the simulator. You can't see this right now, but device, erase all content and settings, and let's just erase everything. That will erase everything from the simulator, which is really what we want to do. Okay, so it's reloading, but I still have some stuff to explain to you. So now that everything is working okay, as you can see, we have color, we could add anything into this extension file. So whenever we recreate all of this, it will recreate only the extension file. So if we wanted, I just told you to add new stuff here. You don't have, you add stuff over here. So that's what you want to do. Now, if you want to generate only the extension file, then you should choose right over here. Let me just select the entity, not manual or none, category/extension. So you could just experiment with that. I usually do manual and none, and just override everything and make sure, it will just do its stuff to generate the class and the properties. It's up to you. Well, basically in this tutorial series, we are not going to touch any of these classes, but hey, now you know how all of this is done. Okay, so now that we have all of that, let's hit Command B, so we know that everything is building A-OK, and move forward by adding core data to our app. And the first thing is that I want to have, by the way, take a look at all of these files if you wanted to, but Yeah, by the way, let's just build this out. Let's just wait this and let's see how all of this is kind of looking here, because it is a stable to-do app, but it doesn't do its persistence. So let's click on add there and let's add in here do yoga. Let's submit that. Yeah, and it's not saving it. Yeah, what we will see that in just a moment. So we will see that in action. What we will have is just simply the ability to tap on a cell and then just view that. And here under the add, we will be taken to the add view controller so we can add a little bit more than just a simple title. So yeah, that's the basic of it. And now what we want to do is create managed context. So that's the first thing that we want to have on our view controller. And yeah, that is an NS managed object context. And we will do that right under here under properties. So var managed context NS managed. Yeah, and we want to import core data. Let's see, why isn't it managed context? And we just banged it out. Okay, so that is really, why isn't it? Oh, it's not managed context. But anyway, it's a good thing to close. Managed object context. But now we have auto-completion back on, so yay. So, managed object context, and I want to have this managed context on the view controller because I want to pass it along to the add view controller and to the details view controller. So while we are at it, let me just copy this out and add them as a property right over here and right over here. Yeah, we already have this, and it's, I just accidentally did not delete this line. Okay, so we have that there. So how do we add that into our view controller? Let's go under the scene delegate, and basically we want to create a managed context from the app delegate. Okay, and what we are going to do is just first of all grab the app delegate. So let app delegate equals, and that is UI application dot shared dot delegate, and let me just have some room here so you can see a little bit better. And that should be an app delegate. There we go. Now that we do have our app delegate, we can grab our managed context. And if you don't know how this works, make sure to check out the first video on the playlist. I talk a lot about this, like 50 or 40 minutes. Managed context equals app delegate dot, and that is, I believe it's persistent container. Yeah, persistent container. Let's hit Command B. Oh, this needs to be as app delegate. Sorry about that. So persistence container. Now we have our view context. Yep, correct. Yeah, I just got lost a little bit, but let's move over. So now that we have our managed context, we just add that onto our controller. Managed context equals managed context. And now you know why I just created this controller outside of our UI navigation controller initialization. So yes, now that we, and that is all you have to do in the app delegate. So let's move forward and let's take a look a little bit more closely on the add view controller. Rather than that, let's just finish up the add button in the view controller, because yeah, we are going to present the add view controller. So there we go. Currently, we are just simply showing this alert and appending the to-dos, reloading collection view. Yeah, it doesn't really work because yeah, it's not persisting data in core data. So what we want to do is create a controller. So let controller equals add view controller. There we go, add view controller. And we want to again move the managed context. So controller dot managed context equals managed context. Let's just copy that out from here and paste it in there. And finally, you want to call self navigation controller dot push view controller, our controller animated true. Okay, and yeah, this should work really fine. Now, I believe we should add in here a self, yeah, because we are in the closure. Yeah, this is from Spark UI. Whenever you just tap on an add bar button, this will be executed. If you are not a fan of Spark UI, if you just want to build it out in UIKit, just go ahead and use an Objective-C func there selector, and yeah, you will be just fine. So let's tap on their add, and as you can see, we can add a task, we can add a title here. And if we tap right over here, we will be asked to choose a photo. We will not do that. We will do that later on. And we can select the difficulty of our task. And finally, we can hit save there. But of course, it's not doing anything just right now. So yeah, and we can just go back. So let's add our task to our managed context. So let's go into our add view controller. And let's find this save bar bottom item. As you can see, it's already fetching the title and the difficulty, so it's guarded unwrapping and selecting our difficulty from our difficulty picker. So now it is time to save the task. So what we are going to do is create an extension here, which will basically do all the core data stuff, so we don't clutter all that function. So there we go, we have a saved task. I already created this with the title, difficulty, and so on. So let's just create our task. So first of all, let's create an entity. So if you recall the previous video, we created an entity and then a task. That's where I had that strange crash. First of all, an entity, then a task with that entity. So that entity is an optional. We guardlet unwrap that last time, but yeah, it could be okay, but let's just, so no, we force unwrapped it with a bang. Oh, how crazy. We need to guard unwrap it. Okay, so guard unwrap this, let entity, there you go, entity. And this will be an NS entity description, and NS entity description, and make sure you imported core data if you already haven't done so in your project. Entity for a name, and that will be task. And in the managed context, sorry. And that is why it's important that it's the same managed context, and we just imported it, like we just inherited it. Okay, otherwise we are just going to return. There we go. Now that we have our entity, let's create our task. And that will be a task. And now we are not going to use a managed object. We are going to create an actual task. And because we do have that class created, we can do so. And we are going to select entity here. So there we go. And managed context. So if you are wondering how all of this, like when we are saving, how does the managed context know what to save? Well, this is where we insert our task into the managed context. So this is the link. Okay, so now it's pretty simple. Just go on to task and add whatever you want. So the title will be our title here. Let's move forward. Our task should also have a difficulty. So difficulty equals, and yeah, this needs to be an int 64. So I'm already converting it to int 64 from the difficulty property that we have on this function. Next up is ID, image data. Task image data. And that will be the images, so the UI image that we are grabbing here, PNG data. Now, this image is on the image view. I won't go into how to select an image. It's already in the project and it's using Spark UI, but yeah, you need to grab an image, a UI image. You need to have an image available, and we are going to use the PNG data of that image. Next up is the ID, task ID, and that will be a simple ID. And as you can see, I'm setting a default UUID here because, yeah, why not? And on the created at, I'm setting a date now. So this is now currently when we are creating. And on completed, I'm setting it to false by default because created tasks should be false on the completed by default. So next up comes created at. So created at equals created at, which is now, and task dot completed equals completed. Okay, now here comes the color. So we don't have any here color here, but we are going to select a specific color on the difficulty given, because if you recall on the previous video, we just had that randomly. We just created random colors for those cells. Now we want to have it as a difficulty. So that will be a switch. Switch, not Swift, switch. There we go on the difficulty. And because this is an integer, we want to have a default value. So default, and that will just simply return. If we don't have a valid difficulty, we just simply return. We're not going to do anything. And let's add some cases. So case 1, and then the task dot color should be UI color. And let's say system red, because if the difficulty is 1, that's the hardest one. So that should be it. And let me just copy this out and paste a few more here, and let's just move this out of the way and select all of that, hit Control I for indentation, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And here we should have system orange, here is yellow, here teal, and blue. Alrighty, and finally we want to save that context, and again we just go, I'm telling you again because we did this already in the previous episode, manage context.save, and this will throw an error, and we are not going to have a pattern, we are just going to use a completion, so completion, there we go, dot failure, dot error. So we are just completing, because as you can see, we do have a result on the completion handler with an error. And of course, we need to have a success value also. So completion dot success equals true. Really, really nice. So we are going to use this one on the save button. So let's scroll all the way up. And now that we have the title and the difficulty, we are just going to call simply self.save task. And there we go. We are just going to use the shorter version because, yeah, default values are okay. And let's add in here title, difficulty, and our image. There we go. So yeah, we just guard ret unret all of those, so we are ready to go. And result comes here, and let's just do the switch statement. Switch result, and let's just wait for Xcode to complete this. So now here we have finished. So if the save finished successfully, so finished, and let error. So in the error, we are going to use, we're just going to show an alert, show error. This comes from Spark UI, so you could just simply show a simple UI alert if finished, else, And if not finished, then something went wrong. We don't even return a false value, but let's just handle all of that with a show error something went wrong. So we are going to say something went wrong. Otherwise, we are just simply going to pop the view controller. So everything is saved. So self, navigation controller, pop, view controller, animated, true. Okay, let's just build and run and see if all of this works. And I can see that this is coming a really, really long tutorial, so I will chunk it into two. We will meet from here in the next video. So let's add a title here, like do yoga. Let's select photo. Let's choose a photo because we are inside the simulator. Whoa, my camera battery died on me. So that is a good sign that I need to stop right now because it's taking a while. I believe it's more than half an hour now. So I will chunk this tutorial into two. And in the next video, we are going to talk about how to fetch all of this data from core data. So I will see you in there. Because my camera battery died, I have decided to cut this tutorial into two parts. So in this first part, you have learned about attributes and how to save data. And in the next one, we are going to talk about how to fetch that data into that to-do list. So make sure to check out that one. And in the meantime, while you wait for that, make sure to check out these videos as well too. I talk a lot about UIKit, Swift in general. And as usual, I will see you in the next one.